Hi everyone, I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. On the Chinese calendar, the year 4717 begins in 2 days. It's known as Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, Spring Festival. The celebration will last just over 2 weeks, and it's the reason for the largest annual human migration on Earth. But it's coming with an additional concern this year that's having effects far beyond China. When we first reported on the Wuhan coronavirus earlier this week, the mysterious illness had sickened more than 40 people and killed 2. Now, health officials say 17 people have died from the disease and at least 540 cases have been confirmed in China. But that's not the whole story. Additional cases have been reported in South Korea, Thailand, and Japan. There are some suspected cases in Australia, and at least one case has reached America with a virus patient in Washington state. But several other cases are being tested in the United States, and they involve people who either traveled to Wuhan or had close contact with someone else who might have the virus. It's named for a province of central eastern China where the disease was first detected in mid-December. Most of the initial patients had been to a large seafood and animal market in Wuhan. A coronavirus can cause breathing problems, and the Wuhan coronavirus has been causing pneumonia. And because it's spread across oceans, international medical officials are trying to figure out what they need to do to stop it. This could involve screening people who travel to other countries, monitoring travelers more closely for symptoms of the virus, and coming up with plans for treating the disease. Its timing is particularly bad for China. Hundreds of millions of people are traveling right now for Lunar New Year, and they're often in close contact with others on trains and planes. In fact, Chinese officials have stopped transportation moving out of Wuhan for the time being.
China is on the move to celebrate the Lunar New Year. Tens of millions of people will head home to visit family by air, sea, train, and car. An estimated 3 billion trips. At Beijing's crowded railway station, many travelers are wearing masks to protect themselves from the fast-spreading Wuhan coronavirus, but others say they're not very concerned, even though the city of Wuhan, which is at the center of the outbreak, is a major air and railway connection for central China.
Right now it's said the cases in Beijing came from Wuhan, and then they fell ill. Not that Beijing itself was the source of the epidemic, so I don't think it's too serious.
You just need to pay attention to your health and personal hygiene and things like that. And particularly the young and elderly should try to avoid going to public places, especially during the holiday.
Chinese officials say they're enhancing screenings at airports and train stations to contain the virus. But the outbreak comes at a time when the country's transport system is operating at full capacity. China's state railway group estimates that Chinese travelers will take 11 million train trips per day during the Spring Festival. And airports around China have scheduled at least 17,000 flights a day. Last year, state media said close to 7 million people traveled abroad for the Lunar New Year. The holiday begins on Saturday, so right now it is peak travel time for one of the greatest migrations of people on the planet. And keeping the virus from spreading further is critical. Zain Asher, CNN, New York.
10-second trivia. What was the name of the last shuttle that flew in NASA's space shuttle program? Atlantis, Discovery, Endeavour, or Enterprise? It was in the summer of 2011 that Space Shuttle Atlantis touched down in the last mission of the program.
Dragon launch escape initiated.
Dragon's away.
Okay, you just saw a bright flash there. It looks like that may be Falcon 9 breaking up.
Three, two, one. Ignition, liftoff.
down a little bit early, in fact.
Coming back down to earth with two animal stories. The first concerns a flightless parrot. There's only one kind of those. It's called the kakapo, and it's native to New Zealand. There aren't a lot of them, and they don't breed quickly or successfully. Scientists estimate that a chick hatches from only a third of all the kakapo eggs laid, but they're making a slow comeback.
On a remote island off the south coast of New Zealand live the world's heaviest and only flightless parrot. The kakapo's wings are too short for the bird to get airborne, so instead they rely on their beak and claws to climb up trees. They live to around 60 years, but despite once being one of New Zealand's most abundant birds, today they're one of the country's most rare and threatened species.
The kakapo used to be one of the most common birds in New Zealand, but when people arrived, things started to go wrong. People hunted them for food, people cleared the forest which they live in, and people brought mammals with them which predated the kakapo. So things like cats, dogs and stoats. Kakapo almost became extinct.
Andrew Digby is part of the Kakapo Recovery Program established in 1995 to bring this charismatic bird back from the brink of extinction.
Kakapo only breeds about every 3 years or so, and that's when a particular type of tree produces lots and lots of fruit, and they breed in response to that.
Today, Andrew's team are on the island to check on the kakapo they have electronically tagged. Finding these supremely camouflaged birds is not an easy task.
Well, every kakapo has a transmitter on it, for example, so we can track where it is and what its activity is. We optimise the feeding, so each kakapo gets its own individual diet, the right amount of food for that particular bird. We have scales at the feeding station so we can weigh the kakapo, know how much it is, and we have a lockable lid so we can make sure that only that kakapo and not the other kakapo get into that particular feeding station.
Since the recovery program began in the 90s, the population has quadrupled. Today, over 200 birds roam the islands.
Our ultimate goal is to return kakapo to the mainland of New Zealand. So people in New Zealand near the cities can hear kakapo booming like people used to hundreds of years ago.
In southern Florida this week, some residents heard iguanas falling out of trees. Thump! Don't worry, he's okay. Sort of. A recent cold front that swept south dragged temperatures down to the low 40s and high 30s in and around Miami. That is very unusual and very cold for this part of the country. And for cold-blooded iguanas, scientists say it makes them go into a dormant state. They're literally stunned by the cold. They're still breathing, and their body's most important systems are still running as long as the temperature doesn't stay that low. But because iguanas often sleep in trees, the cold can cause them to lose their grip on things and drop to the ground. The animals can weigh up to 20 pounds, so the Miami National Weather Service told people to be on guard against raining reptiles. Iguanas are not an ingredient on Australia's longest ever continuous pizza. But if you're wondering why that title was so long, it's because this pie stretches more than 337 feet. That's about the length of a football field. But it's not for football players. The Italian restaurant that baked this behemoth did it to raise money for the firefighters battling Australia's ongoing wildfires. It took about 5 hours to cook and made 4,000 slices. Spinaturally, I'm gonna bake some cheesy puns about that. I'm kind of a ham, they're the pineapple of my eye, and do you know there's a reckon no way I wouldn't leave mushroom to pepperoni my program just to pesto you before we leave. I just can't leave y'all in pizza. But we think it's awesome. The restaurant found a way to fight fire with pie, and we hope it helps put out both flames and appetites in a part of the world in need. Desert Ridge High School. Let's go Jaguars. Thanks for subscribing and commenting on our YouTube page. It's great to hear from you guys in Mesa, Arizona. I'm Carl Azus for CNN.